So recently I saw in the news a headline that said, Goldman Sachs, is it a sustainable business model to cure people? And that's when I realized that we're completely and utterly cooked as a civilization. If these corporate banker interests are able to interfere with our healthcare system in a way that prevents it from doing what it needs to do. And not only does it prevent it from doing what it needs to do, it presents questions such as, is it really viable to cure people? But the thing is that the healthcare was never supposed to be about whether it was a viable business model to cure people or not. And so that's pretty concerning, to say the least. And so, but it got me thinking about, even on like a broader topic, that we're kind of being held back as a civilization by all of this artificial scarcity and corporatism that has been allowed to run rampant and poison all of our best things, all of our best pieces of technology, and just modern amenities that make it so that way you as a human being can live longer than 35. Like a medieval peasant probably on average would have died at like 35 or something. I don't know the exact number, but it's something really bad like that. They didn't really live too long back then, and that's common knowledge. And it's because we got more technology now. We got more heating and air, so people don't die of heat death. People don't freeze to death, at least as often as they used to, right? But the thing is that because of all this greedy bullshit that's been allowed to weasel its way into all these quality of life amenities that make modern civilization a thing that's even worth existing to begin with, we have to deal with crap like the fact that they're poisoning our food to make it more addictive. They're taking the internet and they're intentionally throttling it. There are instances where it literally would not cost them more money to just allow you to have faster internet, but they throttle it to pretty much incentivize you to pay more. There's basically no incentive, at least in America, for them to really, keep it as upgraded as it possibly could be. Whereas if you go over to parts of Europe where these corporate interests are not quite as strongly able to, control things, they have better internet than us in a lot of places over there. And that's, there are some third and second world countries that have more consistent internet than America. But, obviously none of that is really directly as concerning as the fact that healthcare doesn't find it sustainable to cure people, because if you just keep feeding them little band-aids and little sort of things that sort of address the treatments but don't actually fix the root causes, that's way more profitable. Because then you can just keep them coming back for more. And it's even better if the medicine happens to be something that's addictive. And usually any treatments that do definitively cure things are very, very expensive because of this. And they're few and far between. And even though the technology exists to research more of these cure solutions, there's just no profit incentive. So these companies are like, well, why would we do it? Because we're not going to make more money if we cure it, because then they won't just keep coming back for our addictive crap that they have to be on for the rest of their lives. You get some little weird disease and suddenly you gotta be on some bullshit for the rest of your life, when we could have easily invested that research and development money into finding a way to just get rid of the root cause of the problem or fix it in a more sustainable way. But there's no profit incentive right there. Another example would be how there's tons of sustainable fuel options, sustainable energy options as well. Like they found a while back that you could use biofuel and you could use ethanol. And while currently ethanol is, I don't know if this is still the case, but currently I think ethanol is more expensive per gallon than gasoline. But they basically found that if we switched over to producing it on a mass scale, ethanol would actually become cheaper eventually. And we wouldn't have to deal with these rapid price fluctuations in gas all the time, because ethanol is something that can be, ethanol and biofuels are things that can be recreated from renewable resources like corn, and basically anything that produces sugar can turn into like an alcohol and be somehow processed then into ethanol. However that works, I think ethanol is basically just like a really pure form of alcohol, and it really, if you look into it, it doesn't take much to convert flex fuel vehicles that can already run on 85% alcohol. It doesn't take much to convert these vehicles that exist nowadays into ones that can run on ethanol and biofuel. A lot of people say that has its downsides or whatever, but mostly those are corporate interests arguing against it, because if we switched over to ethanol and biofuel, we wouldn't really have to be quite as reliant on the Middle East and all the wars and shit that go on over there. I think it's pretty clear that they just want control. They just want control, and if we were able to produce our own fuels, that would lead to them having less control. So that's probably why they do that. But I just felt like that kind of issue sort of in a way mirrors the whole issue with healthcare. But like on the whole, all these examples are just reasons why we're stagnating. We're stagnating as a society, technologically, culturally, socially, because quality of life is being gate-kept, technology is being gate-kept. I mean, shit, in America, the richest country on earth, we're 20 years behind in technology and infrastructure, behind some countries that are much, much poorer than the U.S. So, a lot of times when I see people complaining about these issues online, there's always some European guy who's like, you must be from America, bro, because this shit, we don't have to deal with any of this shit. I'm not saying that Europe is a perfect utopian wonderland or anything. They definitely have their issues as well. But, it just kind of begs the question, like, what are we doing letting these corporate interests excessively rule us? I'm not going like full tanky communist or anything over here, but I think maybe somebody should put a leash on these bastards who are basically just ruining everything. I mean, come on, man. It's pretty clear that there are poorer countries in the U.S. that have better quality of living than the U.S. And that should not happen. With our resources, we should be, a shining example of what a country could be. But, now it's really just becoming a third world country in a Gucci belt, as I've heard some people put it. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm just kind of tired of quality of living being gate-kept when it really doesn't have to be. It's a total artificial scarcity situation that doesn't have to happen. And that's just my kind of opinion on the issue. But you guys let me know what you think in the comments. Like, am I right about this? Could something more be done to fix the issue, or are we just basically cooked and this is basically as good as it can get? You let me know.